tonight.
But the president's actions have left no choice.
Dueling lawyers take the stand and take sides in the public impeachment hearings.
It comes down to 8 lines in a call transcript.
It's a disgrace.
And the details come to light from a long-awaited report on the origins of the Russia investigation.
Plus, the shooting at a Florida naval base. The FBI is investigating for terrorism.
And
The Jewish state has never had a better friend in the White House than your president.
the president is touting himself as the most pro-Israel American leader in history.
And worship at the White House. Faith leaders gathering in the Oval Office offer their songs and prayers. All this and more tonight on Faith Nation. Another day of impeachment drama on Capitol Hill. Hi, everyone, and welcome to Faith Nation. I'm Jenna Browder.
And I'm Eric Phillips, and for John Jessup tonight, the House Judiciary Committee made the first move since Speaker Nancy Pelosi's announcement on moving forward with drafting articles of impeachment against President Trump.
The Democrats are planning on releasing those articles sometime this week. But today, another highly partisan hearing on Capitol Hill. Both sides presenting dueling lawyers, seizing on what could be their final opportunity to plead their cases to the public. Abigail Robertson joins us now from Capitol Hill with tonight's top story. Abigail?
Well, that's right, Jenna and Eric. As far as the House part of this impeachment goes, the end might soon be near. Both sides are hoping to finish strong and win that coveted court of public opinion.
President Trump's actions are impeachable offenses.
The committee heard testimony Monday from both Democrat and Republican lawyers involved in the House intelligence hearings.
To impeach a president who 63 million people voted for over 8 lines in a call transcript is baloney.
Who were split down party lines on the hearing's conclusion.
Is this when we just hear staff ask questions of other staff?
At many points, tensions flared between lawmakers.
The next 4 hours, you're going to try to overturn the result of an election with unelected people giving testimony?
Gentlemen will suspend.
With Republicans accusing Democrats of denying the minority a hearing day and not following proper procedure.
This is not appropriate to have a witness be a questioner of somebody that was a witness when he was.
President Trump turned up the heat over the weekend, sharing more than 100 tweets on Sunday alone defending himself. So far, Republicans remain unified in their support of the president, claiming this is all just an attempt to overturn the 2016 election.
I think we'll be unified. I think we'll probably see that it's only bipartisan in being opposed. That is to say, I think we'll see some Democrats vote no, and I think you'll see some Democrats who vote yes who are going to be having serious questions to answer from their constituents.
Now, the House Judiciary Committee is expected to draft and vote on articles of impeachment by the end of this week. Next, they will move to the House floor, and we could see a vote just before Christmas. Back to you, Eric and Jenna.
All right, Abigail Robertson on Capitol Hill, thank you very much. And here now for more is Rick Klein, political director at ABC News. Rick, good to have you. Thanks for stopping by.
It's my pleasure.
So your big takeaways from today's hearing?
Well, there's a lot of work the Democrats still have to do, and it strikes me that they were having conversations today that were kind of a recap. It was bringing people up to speed on the evidence so far, but the hard choices are still ahead in terms of how to proceed, how specifically to hone these articles of impeachment, and that really is the Democrats on their own, because a big takeaway, as we've seen in previous hearings, is that the Republicans are dug in on this. They're defending the president. They don't think impeachment is appropriate, and they're not moving.
Well, that's a very good point that you just made in terms of the Democrats having to decide what to include in their articles of impeachment. You heard Jerry Nadler talking about President Trump putting his own interests ahead of the country's interests today. Did you get any sense for what those articles of impeachment might include?
Honestly, I don't think they made a lot of progress in terms of those discussions. They're going to have a lot of work to do, probably in the next 48 hours or so, trying to figure out what to include. There's no shortage of things that Democrats would like to impeach the president for, or at least some Democrats. But in terms of making the case to the American people and even their own members, there's a much shorter list. And they're cognizant of the fact that previous impeachments against Presidents Nixon and Clinton were pretty targeted. 3, 4 concise ideas that they were congealing around. And I feel feel like that's probably the neighborhood that we're dealing with.
Let's talk about 2020. So, Rick, new polling from Firehouse Strategy shows impeachment actually helping President Trump in some key battleground states. There's Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin. How concerning is this for Democrats?
Democrats are definitely worried about the way that this impeachment has played out. They feel like, for the most part, they feel like they have the votes for impeachment and they think they're on the right side of history. They don't feel like the public has joined them there. And, you know, we had polling at ABC a couple weeks ago. 70% of Americans said they thought that President Trump did something wrong, but only 51% said they were convinced that he should be impeached and removed. So you're right there at the razor's edge of a majority. And when you look at the battleground states, it could be a much dicier proposition. Of course, the 51% includes a lot of people in places like New York and California that aren't going to matter as much in the battleground purposes next year. So I think there is concern about how this has played out, and also a sense that public opinion is sort of stalled around this, that they've tried to make the case, but they're not getting additional people to move.
So what do you make of today's performance by the Republicans? They made a lot of noise during the hearings today and really trying to say that it was all a sham. You think their strategy is going to be effective?
Well, they've made a calculation, just like the Democrats have, that they're not going to change many minds on the other side. So they're trying to delegitimize the entire process, and the president has been helping them along the way. I think if this is about politics, then the Republicans are happy with the process because they've shown already that they can stay in line behind this president. He's giving a big rally tomorrow night in battleground Pennsylvania. I think that's going to be another indication of where this is. And if this just becomes about a partisan fight, you sort of know how the votes are going to land.
Polls like the one we just mentioned, did they change, Rick, the calculus and the strategy for Democrats?
Well, I think one thing Democrats have settled on is that they don't feel like the numbers are moving enough in their direction that it's worth prolonging this. If they saw the numbers begin to break in their direction and they thought, let's hear from additional witnesses, let's call in Rick Perry and Mick Mulvaney and John Bolton and the like, I think they'd slow down the process. As it is, not that they think it's necessarily a loser, but they don't see it as a big winner. And that, I think, is arguing toward trying to get this off of the House floor by Christmas, trying to move this on to the Senate early next year.
All right. Rick Klein with ABC News, thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.
Good to see you.
Appreciate it.
Well, tonight we are getting a first look at the Inspector General's report into the origins of the Russia investigation.
The extensive report goes into detail about just every aspect of how the DOJ and FBI carried out the investigation. And a lot of time was spent criticizing the FBI for inaccurate information on surveillance warrant applications. Attorney General Bill Barr saying in a statement that criticism is warranted. Quote, the FBI launched an intrusive investigation of a U.S. presidential campaign on the thinnest of suspicions that, in my view, were insufficient to justify the steps taken. It is also clear that from its inception, the evidence produced by the investigation was consistently exculpatory. Barr went on to say, in the rush to obtain and maintain Pfizer surveillance warrants, the Trump campaign associates, FBI officials, misled the Pfizer court, omitted critical exculpatory facts from their filings, and suppressed or ignored information negating the reliability of the principal source. The Inspector General found the explanations given for these actions unsatisfactory. And the president also sounded off after the findings were made public just hours ago.
It is incredible, far worse than I would have ever thought possible. And it's an embarrassment to our country. It's dishonest.
The FBI filed so-called FISA warrants to be able to electronically monitor Trump campaign aide Carter Page. The warrants were renewed 3 times, but the report says the FBI personnel fell far short of the requirement in FBI policy that they ensure that all factual statements in a FISA application are scrupulously accurate. The report says officials learned new information between the time the applications for warrant renewals were submitted. The report saying, we identified multiple instances in which factual assertions relied upon in the first FISA application were inaccurate, incomplete, or unsupported by appropriate documentation. such as the fact that the DNC and Hillary Clinton's campaign helped fund the infamous Steele dossier, chiefly used to obtain the warrants. But that new info was not included in subsequent FISA application filings. The report maintains that while decision makers higher up in the FBI were not kept properly informed during the investigation, quote, information that was known to the managers, supervisors, and senior officials should have resulted in questions being raised. But that didn't happen. The report also said there was no evidence of political bias where the investigation was concerned, and that while there were issues, by and large, there was probable cause for launching the investigation. The Inspector General's report is careful not to say that if all information in the FISA application had been accurate, it would have made a difference. It insists that both FBI management and FISA court judges should have had the benefit, though, of the best information available.
And joining us now for more is Matthew Hyman, a former Justice Department lawyer, now with the National Security Institute at George Mason University. Matthew, thank you for being here.
Great to be with you both.
So the report is critical of the FBI and some of its processes, but ultimately it does say there should have been the Russia investigation. What net effect does this finding have?
Well, I think if you're looking at this through either a Democrat or Republican lens, which most people on Capitol Hill are doing, as well as the president, there's not a clear win for either side. So it didn't say that the Russia investigation was wrong to begin with. The IG came out and said there was sufficient basis under FISA standards to pursue the warrant of Carter Page. But at the same time, it's a rather brutal assessment of the FBI's performance in terms of putting together the facts and evidence needed for the initial application and the subsequent 3 renewals.
Now, when you talk about the Steele dossier, which is what we're essentially talking about with these FISA applications are concerned, most of them based on the infamous Steele dossier, the role that its content played in securing these search warrants in the investigation, why has that been so controversial? People may have heard the term Steele dossier, but why has that been such a central focus of this?
Well, for a couple of reasons. Number one, if you look at the IG's report, it appears that it was a pretty central piece of evidence that the FBI and the DOJ needed to get the FISA surveillance authority. I think the reason it's been so controversial is Christopher Steele, a former UK intelligence asset, was working for an entity called Fusion GPS. Fusion GPS was hired by the then Clinton campaign to dig up information and to put together opposition research on its then opponent, President Trump. So many people look at this and say, well, what was Christopher Steele's motivation with regard to the investigation? And even later in time, Christopher Steele's, it's clear that he is not in favor of President Trump. So that's why the source of the information that goes into the FISA warrant is of such concern to so many people that are thinking about what are the motivations of the actors behind this.
Attorney General Bill Barr has indicated that he's not surprised by these findings. What does it say, though, that he and Inspector General Horowitz seem to be on the same wavelength here?
Yeah, so they are both saying they disagree with the Inspector General's finding that there was sufficient evidence to open the FISA investigation and to open the Russia investigation. I think what may be going on, and we're only speculating because we don't know, is that U.S. Attorney Durham is running a broader investigation of this where he's looking beyond just what happened at the FBI. He's looking at how the Steele dossier was distributed to the intelligence community, and they may have reason to believe that, in fact, the motivation of opening the investigation was not entirely pure or justified, and clearly they're expressing that today.
Let's just take a step back for one moment. We already had the Mueller investigation. That went on for months. We heard the result of that. Now this investigation. What is the purpose of this investigation? People may not understand that.
Yeah, so when you say this investigation, I think we've got to be careful to parse out what we're talking about. So at this point, the Inspector General's piece of the puzzle is complete. The only remaining investigation happening right now is the one that's being run by Durham. And he is looking at the broader context of what happened. And the big difference between what Durham is doing and what the Inspector General did is that Durham he is running a criminal investigation, and he has a grand jury that can bring criminal charges if someone's violated the law. That's something the IG did not have the ability to do.
Thank you very much for joining us today. We appreciate it.
It's been great to be with you. Thanks, you.
Matthew. Well, turning now to New Zealand. Today, a deadly volcanic eruption there. In a tower of ash and steam, the eruption on White Island came as dozens of tourists were exploring the volcano's surface. At least 5 people died and many more were injured and are still missing tonight. The man who shot this video tweeted that he and his family had gotten off the island just about 20 minutes earlier.
President Trump is sending a warning to North Korea's Kim Jong-un after a controversial weapons test, tweeting that Kim Jong-un has everything to lose if he acts in a hostile way. A South Korean expert believes the regime tested an engine for an intercontinental ballistic missile recently. This comes after Kim apparently gave Trump an ultimatum, warning the U.S. to end all hostility. Earlier, the regime said, quote, "It's up to the U.S. what kind of Christmas gift it will get from North Korea."
Coming up, why the shooting at a Florida naval base is now being investigated as an act of terrorism.
Life is better with a good night's sleep. Get your free DVD or booklet of Protect Your Sleep as the world watches from the outside.
It's a big diplomatic tug of war here in the Middle East.
Go inside the story with Jerusalem Dateline.
Israeli archaeologists are talking about a discovery that could change the thinking about the Temple Mount.
Join CBN Jerusalem Bureau Chief Chris Mitchell and get the biblical perspective on the events shaping the world.
What starts in Israel then ends up going to other places.
Watch Jerusalem Dateline Friday night at 9:30 on the CBN News Channel.
Life. It's meant to be lived fully. Jesus said it. I came to give you life. Life to the fullest. Life in your family. Life in your finances. Life in your body, mind, and spirit. Life in your everyday. At CBN.com, we're taking what Jesus said seriously. We're here to help you discover life. Life. Live it fully. CBN.com.
Tonight, the investigation into the slaying of 3 U.S. service members at a naval air base in Florida turns to terrorism.
At issue is whether the Saudi Air Force lieutenant who opened fire at Pensacola Naval Air Station acted alone.
Dale Hurd has the chilling details, including what the shooter tweeted just a little while before the killings.
The Saudi Air Force lieutenant is believed to have tweeted about his hatred of Americans a short time before the shooting. The tweets were deleted, but have been recovered. Mohammed al-Shamrami tweeted, "I hate you because every day you are supporting, funding, and committing crimes not only against Muslims, but also humanity." The dead victims have been identified as 23-year-old ensign Joshua Caleb Watson, 19-year-old airman Mohammed Sameh Haytham, and 21-year-old airman apprentice Cameron Scott Walters. Al-Shamrami used a Glock 9mm purchased legally in Florida under a federal loophole that allows representatives of so-called friendly nations to buy guns. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis said he supports the Second Amendment, but that it does not apply to Saudis.
You have foreign military personnel coming to our base. They should not be doing that if they hate our country.
In the days before the shooting, al-Shamrami reportedly showed videos of mass shootings at his home. Secretary of Defense Mark Esper says he's ordered a review of the Foreign Nationals Exchange Program and base security.
Yesterday, I directed that we look at our security precautions across the services in all of our installations and bases and facilities to make sure that we're got the appropriate degree of security to protect our service members and their families.
Meanwhile, 10 other Saudi nationals are restricted to an area on base, and the FBI is trying to determine if others were involved. One of those students was detained at the scene of the attack after apparently taking videos on a phone.
Our main goal right now is to confirm whether he acted alone or was he a part of a larger network.
President Trump said the Saudis will cooperate and compensate the victims' families.
I spoke with the King of Saudi Arabia. They are devastated in Saudi Arabia. We're finding out what took place, whether it's one person or a number of people.
Florida Congressman Matt Gaetz said the Saudis better cooperate.
We expect Saudi intelligence to work with our government to find the people accountable and hold them responsible, and I was given every assurance from the ambassador that that would occur.
Investigators also believe the gunman visited New York City days before the shooting and are working to determine the purpose of that trip. Dale Hurd, CBN News.
When we come back, the president is touting his pro-Israel stance. What he said to Jewish voters, coming up next.
On October 1st, 1961, history was made when a tiny station began transmitting the first signals of the Christian Broadcasting Network.
CBN, the Christian Broadcasting Network.
And now, a new era has begun with the all-new CBN News Channel.
Just moments ago, the Iron Dome intercepted an incoming rocket right on the Gaza border.
And ministering in this area, spiritual warfare is definitely involved.
A 24/7 news network, bringing you the news you want from a source you can trust.
In Kenya, 40% of the medical services are actually provided by these Christian hospitals.
Let's talk about the economy.
Believers here are joining together to win people to Jesus Christ.
All your favorite shows now in one place. Go to CBNNewsChannel.com to find out how to get the CBN News Channel on your TV all day, every day. CBN News. Life is better with a good night's sleep. Get your free DVD or booklet of Protect Your Sleep today.
Life. It's meant to be lived fully. Jesus said it. I came to give you life. Life to the fullest. Life in your family. Life in your finances. Life in your body, mind, and spirit. Life in your everyday. At CBN.com, we're taking what Jesus said seriously. We're here to help you discover life. Life. Live it fully. CBN.com.
Welcome back. Well, breaking away from the impeachment hearings, President Trump is touting his pro-Israel record. This weekend, he traveled to Florida for a Jewish American event.
CBN News White House correspondent Ben Kennedy has more on the president's pro-Israel stance. Ben.
Well, Eric, Jenna, President Trump traveled to the critical swing state of Florida not only to campaign, but to speak to the Israeli-American Council National Summit.
The Jewish state has never had a better friend in the White House than your president.
Addressing these Jewish supporters, the president's policies were praised by the Israeli-American Council National Summit.
Every single day since I took the oath of office, I have stood firmly, strongly, and proudly with the people of Israel. You know that.
He then touched upon his son-in-law's work on the Middle East peace deal.
I used to hear the toughest of all deals is peace with Israel and the Palestinians. They say that's the toughest of all deals, but if Jared Kushner can't do it, it can't be done.
His remarks come as protests pick up along the Israeli border. The president made clear, however, Iran is the bigger threat to Israel.
We must never allow a regime that chants death to America or death to Israel to obtain a nuclear weapon. That's all we can say.
Trump touted his move to pull out of the Iran nuclear deal.
We paid $150 billion to Iran $1.8 billion in cash. We got nothing.
Trump also called out anti-Semitism in D.C.
You've got to be very careful. Make no mistake. Radical lawmakers who support the BDS movement are advancing anti-Israel and anti-Semitic propaganda, and Americans will not stand for it.
It's been more than a year since Trump solidified the alliance between the two countries by moving the U.S. Embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem, and then recognized Israel's sovereignty over the Golan Heights. Trump took this moment as an opportunity to throw jabs at President Obama.
I don't think they liked Israel too much. After 8 long years in which our alliance was undermined and neglected, I am happy to report that the United States-Israeli relationship is stronger now than ever before.
Now, Trump said unlike other politicians, he's kept his promise. Last month, the president left his home state of New York to take up residence in Florida, a key state he won back in 2016 by a little more than 1 percentage point. Eric, Jenna?
All right, then, well, praise and worship in the White House. Details coming up. You're watching Faith Nation, news from a Christian perspective.
Life is better with a good night's sleep. Get your free DVD or booklet of Protect Your Sleep today.
I'm Ephraim Graham, and this is Studio 5. Cruise with me as I discover the good things happening in the world of music, sports, television, and movies.
The fact that Ryan Coogler was going to be directing the film, I knew that something special was going to happen.
We'll chat with artists at the forefront of entertainment and explore the connection between popular culture and faith.
I asked my pastor, I said, well, does that mean I'm supposed to be a preacher? He says, well, no, you already have a pulpit.
Watch Studio 5 Wednesday night at 9:30.
Remember for a moment what it was like to be a child. You believed every story you were told. You saw a world full of endless possibilities. What stories will the world's orphaned and at-risk children believe? We believe the Bible tells the only story truly worth believing. We believe that every child should have the opportunity to dream, the chance to take challenges and turn them into possibilities, the chance to stand on the promises of God, to recognize their place in the greatest story ever told. They have their whole lives ahead of them. Theirs is a world of endless possibilities. They are looking for a story to believe. We will tell them that story. Will you join us?
Well, we don't often think of the White House as a place of worship, but Friday showed us a different story.
That's right, Jenna. At the invitation of the president, faith leaders gathered together to sing songs of worship and praise to the Lord. In a video from Sean Foyt, a pastor and congressional candidate, officials can be seen joined together worshiping in the Eisenhower building. Songs continued as the group moved outside in full view of the White House. Foyt and others also met and reportedly prayed over the president and vice president in the Oval Office. The so-called faith briefing was touted as an opportunity for the administration to give updates on its faith-based initiatives. There's a saying that as the praises go up, blessings come down, and we could use all those blessings on the White House.
Yes, so true. You know, it's amazing the access that evangelicals have been given to this administration.
Indeed.
Well, that is going to do it for Faith Nation tonight.
We'll see you back here tomorrow night. Have a great evening.